Hey Ruiz, what's up with you, man? Right on time. You get the timeliness award. Julian, what's up, buddy? Sorry, I'm sniffly. It's a little chillier out here today. That's how a man does it right there. Like a man. Yeah, that's it, man. It's not rocket. One of my favorite lines from the John Steinbeck book, Red Pony, is that it's in the very beginning when the farmhand shows up in the book. And Steinbeck says that he pressed one finger against one nostril and blew the snot out of the opposite. I love that line, man. One of the best. Steinbeck had a way of writing stuff he had a perspective that a lot of people don't have. That is a brilliant linguist and writer, visionary person from the country, you know. I guess since I'm on a live, I'll do these the old-fashioned way. Yeah, when I'm running, like I run every day, that's like a regular. Like I gotta expectorate on the regular. Yeah, those were books read to me when I was a little small guy. So the Shel Silverstein books definitely stuck in my head for sure. That man must have made a fortune. Everybody in America owned his book. Well, that's one way to do it. That cut is pretty straight, though, man, if I do say so myself, and I do. Cut enough for these things. Welcome everybody to Dad's Workshop, where we just hang out, check in on each other a little bit. make sure everything's good, and then do woodwork. Left my pencil. There we go. So these need to be 43 inches. A little bit extra is okay. We love you too, Ruiz. So just like you appreciate the channel, man. I got 2 lines going on right now. I gotta fix that. 43 inches, because these are going to be short end tie beams. They're just to add a little support. So they're going to be somewhere along, in the middle on each short side. I don't want to use my eraser and erase that line. I got back from the lumber yard yesterday with a huge load of, 2x4s and different pieces of conventional lumber. I spent a long time making sure that they were straight and true. Thank you, Julian. Thank you, Julian. Thank you, Julian Squared. I wonder if I put it over here, you'll probably be able to see me better, but the problem is I can't cut it all the way through. I'll move the camera so you all can see. Let me see. Let me move over here. It's like a 10-second delay. You and I. You can see the end of the board, but you can't see me. Let me go over and angle it, because this is the best place for me to cut from. You probably see the wrong line. See how there's 2 lines there, but it's the one closest to my left that I'm cutting on. All right, my workpiece is not secure enough, so let me, as Julian knows, and I have told him many times, you must secure your workpiece. good with that. That's a terrible saw too. So if I get good with that one. I'm going to make the tenons the entire width of the board so I don't have to worry about that. These posts are 3.5 inches wide, actually more like 3 3/8. That's going to make it a little trickier. I'll just put them against, actually I can't do that because then there's no support wood. So 3 3/8, and this is 1.5 inches, I believe. Oh, that's tricky. I wonder if I do this. Let me move the camera so you can see my way of thinking. Remember, we're building this bed from scratch with no plans, so the tricky thing about this is question for today. I mean, it has to be like a pop culture-y kind of a question. Will Travis Kelce propose to Taylor Swift at the Super Bowl? Yes or no? Travis Kelce proposes to Taylor Swift at the Super Bowl. I mean, I would be super surprised. Think so? I honestly, I don't. I think it's all a charade, some large hoax, but maybe that would happen. Throw that in a poll, Heather, and maybe Taylor's, all the Swifties and people will pop through and lend their vote to it. All right, here's my way of thinking right now. My way of thinking is that with this being 3 3/8, the posts, and these being 1.5 inches wide, it makes for a lot of measurements if I have to place them exactly in the middle. So what I'm thinking is I take the end, make the tenon on one side of the end, and make it bare here so that I can put it smack against the side and it'll still go in. So the tenon is inset. Half of the end of it is a tenon and half is an empty space. That way we can butt it up against the end, but it'll still go into a mortise, which I will cut into those. So I'll just split this. It'll be 3/4 inch of nothing and then 3/4 inch of tenon. And then if the tenon, ooh, that's tricky because, no, that'll work. The tenon will be on this half of the this 3/4 inch side. And then the housing it'll be basically, I'll start by measuring a 2x4 width again, and then I'll have that 3/4 on both sides, make sure it's level on both sides, and then I'll cut the mortises in the posts. That's how I'll deal with that. So basically this one's gonna be offset on this side. I don't think it matters because if I flip them, it's the same thing. I'll make sure I do that correctly. So the next thing I need to do is take my little scribe tool and make a 3/4 inch mark. Make sure these ends are true because I cut them with a handsaw. And then 3/4 inch is nothing. Then 3/4 inch is the, and I have already decided that they will both be, I think in my book it says 1.5 inches wide. Yeah, 1.5 inches long per tenon. So let's mark that off first. This is not perfectly square right here, so I might have to straighten that one. So I've got 1.5 inches in length on each side. So each side is going to have 1.5 inches tenon. I hope this works. I think this idea will work. That's maybe a little short, which is okay. Oh yeah. All right. So Ruiz, rewrite that question so we know what you're saying, and we'll make that. We'll have Ruiz pick our next poll. That's the way we'll do it. Now I have 1.5 inches marked on each side. What I want to do, just due diligence, is go around the entire piece and get that line straight around it. I wish I could plane these, but I really don't have time to do that with all the other stuff. When you plane them, they don't look like conventional lumber anymore, which is nice. But I'll go back and replane everything before we put it together for the final time. So what I'm doing now is I'm taking this little tool here and I'm going around and making sure that line is straight, precise all the way around. Because my cuts weren't necessarily even when I cut with the handsaw, it's possible that the tenon will not be exactly even, but I can work on that. I don't want to cut any length off the boards to straighten them. That'll mess up my measurements. Learn by mistakes, you know. You do this stuff, you make a mistake, it costs you a tremendous amount of time, and then you don't do that stuff anymore. Or you make the next mistake. Do that on the other end. Got clamps in the way kind of here. Sorry, I hit the microphone. Tenons are 1.5 inches. Sometimes I have to talk myself through this stuff. So 1.5 inch mark goes all the way around. That does not look the same as that. Yes, that one's more accurate. Oh, that's because I was at 1.25 inches. That makes sense. Measure twice. Just looks beyond that other line. It is. I'm just going to use this speed triangle, speed square to... I have a better square at my folks' place. I really meant to bring it back with me, but did not. There's multiple ways that you can get these straight lines on this. That's really messy. Let me take all that off. But the key is to get the line contiguous. Like, you really want that if the line's not matching up, then your measurement is somewhat wrong, or the angle of your pencil is. It could come down to the angle of your pencil, and that's annoying, but the sharpness of your pencil too. So you see I'm sharpening this pencil now. So I'm definitely not going to use that top one as my guideline because it is a mess. Now, finally, these last two lines should really come together here if I get them right. Yeah. So I've got my edge 1.5 inches marked all the way around here, marked all the way around here. Now, this part is going to be kind of tricky to see. I'm going to have to angle the camera so that you all can see this. But what I'm going to do is take half of this up here, 3/4 inch, and mark it. Run that mark all the way around. So I've got my little tool set to 3/4 inch, hopefully. Yep. That looks a little more than half, so I don't want to do this in the wrong way here. No, that should be right. Maybe just a little, I'm a little long on that. You want to make sure, if anything, especially on the sides you're cutting. I mean, I'm going to tell you, that does not look like a, because if I put it 3/4 from both sides, this is really more like, that's reading 1.5 inches. But when I put it at 3/4 on here, I should do this in millimeters. I guess for kerf, that's probably all right. But you'll see I got two different lines going on in the middle there, and that's what's tricky. I don't want to cut until I'm really certain about where 3/4 inch is. Should be the same from both sides. I should be able to take this thing and go boom and hit the same, get the same exact thing on both sides. Sometimes where the little wall is on this thing, you have to set it in front of the measurement. That looks more accurate there. Yep. And then if I draw from the other side, it comes out on the same line. So I know I got my 3/4 inch correct there. Let me bring it in. Bring it in. Bring it in. Yeah, actually, Ruiz, I'm the same way. I don't even care about. I like football. I've watched football all season, but the Super Bowl, by that time, I'm usually not interested anymore. But the commercials are great. Love the commercials. All right, we're gonna try to do this all within this little close-up area here. But I know Miss Heather likes the halftime, but I'm like, blah, blah. No thanks. So I got about like this area here. This is like where the camera ends. I kind of got to know that. All right. Here we got 3/4 inch on this side. Now we got to take that mark and we got to run it all the way around. So this is going to be tricky to hold this board and do this where the camera can see it. I made a little sloppy mark there. I wonder if there's a way I could clamp this down. Still get it in the shot here. I'll get it to balance. This is really tricky. But y'all get it, right? This line has to go all the way around, and you can't have this sloppiness in here. Till we decide which side's going to be the meat. I'd say the side that looks smaller to you, which it should be even, Side that looks smaller, that should be the tenon. Right? No, that should be the, yeah. No. You want the wider, if you have a wider side, make that the tenon so that you can chisel that back if you need to. You can pare away some of that. All right, now we got that marked on there. Now we got to mark it on this side. Some of the trickier writing, sketching I've ever done. Looks like my camera is a little fuzzy, so I'm thinking maybe I need to check my internet connection. Oops. And I'm seeing this side is looking like the bigger, kind of the bigger side. So I'm going to take off this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to shade all the parts that are coming off. Some people will put a W on it when you get more experienced and you've done like a piece of furniture multiple times. You probably don't need to shade it all the way. Try to eliminate that variable. Then we're going to make a series of cuts in this wood, straight down, starting from the shoulder, which is where that line is, and coming in. So let's clamp it down. It's showing, but not a lot. So let me move it a little bit here. We're going to do all of the same stuff with the other side too, but let me show you how to get down to the action here. Still fuzzy. Let me check my connection. This looks slow. All right, so now we want to make our first cut on the shoulder as straight as possible. This is where I'm going to bring in my little mirror. You know, I've been using this little mirror for multiple things, but as a way to see the back of the joint. So now I can see both sides of that line. Yeah, the mirror is really very helpful because I'm not very, I mean, obviously that's not a perfectly accurate cut, but it's much more accurate than if I couldn't see that side. It's no question. So now this cut doesn't matter that much. This is just another stop cut to help remove the waste. Let me put a clamp over here. It's kind of moving around. really sharpen chisels. Hopefully, I've not tested them, but because my sharpening method is pretty reliable, I have not. I'm going to go ahead and just try them on here. But you got to do this. You got to make some stop cuts so that you don't blow out wood. Right above the stop line here, above this line, layout line, make a cut. So if it's going to blow itself out or if it's going to take wood off, it's going to tend to stop at those cuts. That's the way wood behaves typically. Now, due diligence would have me doing it this way too, but I'm not going to. I don't think I need to. So the poll says that who? 14 people said who? 14% of people, all of those people born under a rock. Well, I mean, it depends on the blow. I have some blowout on my piece right now, but I would say it depends on the amount of blowout that you have. But if it doesn't affect the engineering of the joint, like it doesn't make the joint loose, or there's a way to work around it, obviously do that. But in general, like a real anal retentive woodworker, and I'm not the most anal, but an anal woodworker would start over and start that piece over again, and this time make sure that they made the stop cut. A good question, man. Rui's always got good questions, man. Let me see, you're not really gonna have that problem. Let me clamp it over on the very end too. It's gonna secure it a little more for me. If I read your question correctly, Ruiz, I think your question was, what do you do if you do blow out the wood? Well, sometimes you can work around it, and other times you're going to have to start over again. I feel that I'm sensing that there's some sort of imperfection down here, like a knot inside this, but it's coming off all right. To be honest with you, I cannot see that cut line very well, so that makes me a little nervous. I'm gonna stop there for a second to make sure that I can see what I'm working on here. I might turn it toward the mirror. I'm actually not super happy with how sharp that chisel is. I'm gonna have to work more on that one. Let me get a different one here. I'm real close to that line according to my mirror here. Sometimes when you start to sharpen stuff and you think you're done, you may actually make it duller than it was originally, like in the process, like putting in an 800 grit paper, which is what I did. I don't think that happened with this chisel necessarily. I think maybe this, which seems like white pine that I'm working in right now, is just a little stubborn. That's pretty straight there so far. Take this chisel and go across the side of it. Making extra effort to make sure your wall or your shoulder is very straight, like at a 90-degree angle. That's part of that square rule concept of woodwork. Everything's square. See how easy that is with the micro bevel or the back side of the chisel? So you just went perpendicular to the grain and you raised a bunch of wood off the grain. Hopefully my table won't shake so you can see. I do think I kind of messed these chisels up. It shouldn't have to crush to get through there. But you're lifting the wood up from going perpendicular to the grain, then you take the back side of the chisel. That'll clean that. I mean, it's going to still be rough, but you're going to have a general idea of what a flat level is there. Also, going diagonal helps you kind of get your bearings. Something I saw other woodworkers do. I wonder why they're using the chisel diagonally. It looks like this edge is a little bit raised, so. See, I got a little blowout right there, I think. And if you have a shoulder plane, that's what you would use for this. Otherwise, I showed everyone, like, you take a larger flat chisel. Hey, New Beginnings. Welcome, New Beginnings, friend of the show. Welcome, Ruiz, who's been here since the beginning, friend of the show. So maybe this one's a little too small to do that with. I want almost the whole entire size of the tenon. Yeah, I felt like that edge was raised, and I want to flip it around. I can't really do that with you guys though. And keep the angle. Yeah. If you were here yesterday, you saw me cutting that bridle joint, and I can show you that in a moment so you can see how that turned out. I don't love the way it looks on a whole, like as a whole, but the bridle joint turned out perfect, like better than I've ever cut it before, at least in my opinion. You know, for me, it was very good, very well done. You know, so for my own standards, I hold myself to a pretty high level of scrutiny, you know. Making sure that edge is as plumb as possible there. Welcome to Dad's Workshop. Make sure you click that like and subscribe button. Vote in our poll. Is Taylor Swift, oh, who's going to win the Super Bowl? I was going to say, is Taylor Swift going to be proposed to if the Chiefs win? That's what I was wondering. If the Chiefs win, will Travis Kelce propose to Taylor Swift? But we have another poll up now, so take that one. Yeah, I like yesterday it was hot, so I had to have the AC. Was that yesterday? Maybe day before? I don't know. I had to have the AC in the shop on, and it's the middle of, you know, the winter, so I really shouldn't have to do that. All right, so we got one here. Let me take this other clamp off. What we want to be able to do is put close enough to the edge that it can be pegged, right? So what I'm thinking is that I set it in, so the mortise is set in, and there's a flat area and an area of support wood here, and that this tenon goes in, you know, and it stays flush with the edge. So it looks as if the board's nailed in, but it's not. It's actually joined. And that's one edge, and that's pretty straight right there. The next thing I need to do is lay out. I said it was 3/4 of an inch from each side. Hopefully I'm in the camera's view right now. This is my less straight edge here, so this tenon may turn out a little funny, but we'll fix it and make sure that it's good enough. Like as I'm looking at it right now, I see some deviation of the edge going outward here, fluting outward. And I think I try to draw a pencil line to show where a straight edge would be, but that's not going to help when it comes to like using tools against the edge as a reference edge. That's all right. Looks a little long on this side. Let me pick this piece of wood up and take a look at it. Same thing as the other side. I want to make sure that I'm getting 3/4 of an inch here. That doesn't look exactly like 3/4 of an inch. And there's a reason last time I put it on the wrong thing. That line should be, could have been how I had to angle my pencil, so it may be easier to do it like this. Yeah, that looks more, oh, do y'all hear my stomach growl? It would happen even if I ate, so Heather, don't worry about my starving. I'm fine. All right, that looks more like split in half. I don't know if y'all can see that from the camera angle. Yeah, I'm big on AC. I try to not even run that much. You know, Heather knows this. I don't mind kind of a cold house in the winter, but I deal very poorly with a hot house. This is tricky. I might have to do this one kind of off camera. This side's not right. And that probably has to do with the edge fluting out. Just got to look at that bubble and use that as the guide. I may have to do for that on the other side. Yeah, all I really need is this side and that other side to be able to get a good reference, and I'll use the mirror also. Now, since the other tenon is on the bottom side, I have to cut on this side here because it's got to be on the same side on both. I mean, preferably, you just want to be able, if we're pegging it, we want to make sure that we're putting the pegs in basically the same thing. What I'm doing is I'm doing mortise and tenon joints, but the tenons are going to be, you can go back and watch the live again too. I got my lumber from this lumber supply place out in, you know, like 30 miles from here that has more different dimensions and different types of wood. Sometimes you have to pick through it because there's some poor quality stuff in there. And let me answer one question at a time. So not lap joints. These look like lap joints. Good question, Daniel. Welcome, Daniel. They look like lap joints because one side is kind of like a finger, but they're actually going to be tenons because they're going to be inset into two posts. So I'm trying to think of a way I can show you without moving my camera too much. See, I got a post over here, a spare post. This is going to be kind of tricky because this is a full-size post. So what's going to happen is, so you have to pretend that this post is going to be, is going to have a mortise going to be this way too. There's going to be a mortise cut into this post right here to allow for this to go in and then sit against that shoulder flat. That's what's going to happen here. And then it's going to get pegged with two dowels when I'm finished through the side there, through the side of the layout face here, or the post. What do you say about the Zoom? Yeah, man. Welcome. Make sure you subscribe, man. Click the like button for me, and we'll keep this conversation going, Daniel. All right. So now we've got this one side of this tenon done, and what I was doing there was I was marking out. It has to be on the same side. The tenon has to be. So this is going to be. We're going to shade it, although that looks a little I might cut a hair short of the line. This is all waste that I'm shading here. So you see all of that's going to come out. So what am I going to do? I'm going to saw out little marks in it, starting with the shoulder. Some lines all the way down to that cut line. You have to give me a water break here. I'm going to take a quick water break, and I'm going to do that sawing. But let me move the camera so you can see. Just trying to make sure. I got to wait for the feed to show them so I know that you guys can see the end of this thing. All right, good. That's right. All right, give me 1 second to get a water break, and then I'll keep going. All right. Put my microphone back on, and I'm back. And my saw. And as I've said many times, this is a cheap Ryoba saw from a discount-ish tool supplier that I will not name unless they want to pay me some money, and then I'll say it's a nice saw. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't say that. I would still recommend against this saw, though it has worked for me. So hey, proof is in the pudding. I want this cut to be straight, so I got to make sure that I'm aiming this saw straight on down. This shoulder is really important. That's a little off there. That's as far as I want to go, because as I said before, I was going to cut a little shy of that line. Now I'm going to make another cut, which is not as important here. I do use power tools. My bandsaw blade is broken, but yeah, I try to just do mostly hand tools, especially since there's an ASMR component to this There are people who just watch this just to listen to the sounds and chill because they don't want to think about anything. Just want to hear somebody work. That's actually a good component of my viewers, like something like 80%. They just don't say anything. So that being said, I use power tools on the live too. I try to keep the mic away from it. But we use mostly hand tools here. And you can build amazing stuff with hand tools. You just have to know how to use them. Now, I took that cut slow so that I would get it straight. And it looks pretty good if I'm looking in the mirror right now. What I'm going to do now is make just a more of a random cut here. It doesn't really matter, kind of towards the middle. Only thing that's important here is that I cut, that I stop when I get to that line or close to it. There is a guy that I know that not very well, but he runs a mill, and I would like to talk to him about getting some lumber cut. But it looks like he's using his mill to cut about the 15 oak trees, and I don't think he's going to have much of a mill left after that. He's going to go through tons of blades on that oak. So I'll wait till he's gone through the experimentation phase of cutting oak trees with that bandsaw mill, and then once he gets through that with his $100,000 sawmill that he got as a toy, I will then ask him to mill me some pine and see if there's a fair price that I can come up with. Now, what I did before, and I should do again, is make stop cuts. This is that due diligence stuff. So you stop. I gotta unclamp it. I'm gonna put it on its side. I'm going to go across here as I did before, right above this line, and make a stop cut here so that I have less chance of blowing wood out. Like I said, I would like to do one here, but don't have a good angle. That looks good. We'll go with that. Yeah, my bandsaw was, I was trying to cut one of these posts with it, and it just couldn't handle that much material. A 10-inch saw just couldn't handle a post like that. So really, I should have done that by hand too, probably. See, if you're good with hand tools, you can do anything. If you're not very good with hand tools, you need tons. I'm not saying that people who have power tools are not, because some of these are really good woodworkers. And power tools are a good thing to have. That's why we live in 2025. But if you can do it with hand tools, then you always have a way to do it, you know. Saw right through the end grain, because I don't want to use the rip saw into this blade, and the cut would come out uneven. Good question, man. So the answer is two things. The question is why wouldn't I rip saw through the end of this board to take that material out? You could do that, but chances are with this rip saw, which is terrible, the little teeth on this are so dull, like they came dull. So rip sawing is really touch and go, and I know I can pare down the wood this direction accurately down to a perfect line. And if I rip saw it, it's going to be off, or I'm going to have to chisel anyway. So it doesn't make sense. I learned that through experience for me. And that's kind of what I'm talking about using tools. I'm using the wood to my advantage here. If I was rip sawing, I would be exhausting myself right now. And also, if I had a bandsaw and was using it, that's a bandsaw job right there. To rip saw through the end of this, because a lot of bandsaw blades are wide teeth, don't have many teeth per inch, so they're really meant for rip cutting. Good question though. Cutting too long, cutting uneven. Those are two reasons I don't do it that way. Missing the line. Rip sawing is different than cross cutting. It's not as fun. It's a lot more of a, that's why you end up with at a mill with a lot of bad pieces of lumber or unstraight pieces, because you're rip cutting everything. I'm gonna get one of my little small chisels here. The ones I sharpened. Clamp this again. We'll see, that may have been blowout there beyond the line. Daniel says, great, thanks. I bought a bunch of tools this past year. I made a small backyard table and some benches. I've been using pocket holes but joints. And I can't understand the next sentence, but it's talking about joinery versus screws. And he's adding some more. I'll finish when he finishes. Yeah, so pocket holes are cool too. I like Craig jigs. I like Craig screws a lot. I'm not big on the pocket hole jig, but you can kind of do pocket holes without the jig. You can actually make your own jig. Craig's made millions of dollars off that. And of course, I would love Craig to sponsor me, because I do like their products. But you can kind of make pocket holes without that jig. Pocket holes are a good way to attach furniture, as long as they're in a consistent positioning. I actually repaired the floorboards of our house here with a pocket hole technique. Basically, I was sistering up studs to each other, and I used angular approaches through the good wood, then countersunk those with a countersinking bit off at an angle, and then you could achieve that angle that you want the screw at, which is kind of what a pocket hole is just getting getting a screw to go in at a certain angle that gives it more stability. And also it's a cleaner look because they're more hidden. But what do I know? I just started doing woodwork last week. I'm just kidding. Fake it till you make it, they told me. So I just said I'll start a woodworking channel. I'm going to go after this with a larger chisel, see if I can flatten that out. See now, Daniel, what I'm doing now is I'm paring down to my line, right? If I cut this with a saw and I missed, that's it. You know, I've missed my line. Or if I cut too much or too little, I got to do all of this anyway. You know, if you cut too much, your whole piece is done. And I've already cut one joint on this. It's just defending my thesis that rip cutting the end of this with the equipment that I have currently would not be smart. I've tried this rip saw so many times and learned. Yesterday I cut one of my bridle joints with it reluctantly. I just knew it was the only way I was going to do it where it was. The Japanese style Ryoba saws have a thinner, softer steel, and they don't get stuck inside the wood like these American-made ones. They're just not, you know, as good. I'm using that back micro bevel on the chisel to kind of act like a little planer and get the wood that's closest to the shoulder here out, because that's where it wants to stay long. That's the hardest place for the woodworker to get after, is that right spot right in this corner between the corner and the shoulder. Joints are usually not fit properly because that part is not chiseled out all the way. So Nick Offerman. Brian, welcome Brian, friend of the show. Always got good input. Brian says, I prefer Nick Offerman's look on it. None of us are masters of woodworking. We're all students all the time. Yeah, and that's kind of how a lot of disciplines are. Music also, you're always learning new music. Even like John Williams is some of the greatest that are in their 90s. They're still, till they die, they'll be learning new music. It's kind of like medicine, because your doctors always can learn more about new diseases and techniques and procedures in medicine. So compare woodworking to medicine. It's like surgery, wood surgery. Much less, not as high stakes for sure. Nick Offerman only, by the way, speaking of Nick Offerman, Nick Offerman does not do other woodworking. He sticks strictly to making canoes, as I understand it. Like he's a dugout canoe guy. That's his woodworking discipline of choice. As we were talking about the other day, woodworking is an umbrella of a number of different types of craft. Turning and carving and coopering, if that's a thing. Sawyering. What's another one? Carpentry, cabinetry. Those things are different too. You know, like framing and carpentry is a more crude and large scale version of what cabinet makers do, which is more fine stuff for little fingers. No offense. Must be a knot around this area. The wood is really, really not wanting to cooperate right there. Like the grain is not in a consistent direction. I'm almost certain this shoulder will have to be adjusted. Yes, I agree. I'm in the framing and carpentry, but I like to think of myself like, because my favorite woodworker is George Nakashima. So I like to make furniture, but I don't think furniture needs to be upholstered all the time, and I don't like to see it done cheaply. I like to use joinery as much as possible. I love timber framing too, so I've kind of taken what I saw from George Nakashima, and I used to build a lot of tables too, and I did a lot kind of in his, nothing like what he could do because he was pretty much a genius. But yeah, somewhere between like the Japanese style joinery and traditional European and European American timber framing, you know, that's kind of where I am, somewhere in there. I like to think of myself kind of more as a framer than like I'm definitely not a cabinet maker. I don't have those skills or tools. They do a lot of jigs, and I mean, I guess I could learn it if I had a master teach me, but I think that's one you have to have a. I worked with this guy, and he had like $100,000 woodworking studio that he didn't even really use. His brother gave it to him when he died, and that he taught me some stuff like, and I never saw an edge that straight. So, yeah, and you know, there's levels, different levels of everything. I met a timber framer in rural Virginia, and he teaches classes, and he taught me a lot just in one day. He imparted a lot of wisdom on me. I was around him and his students. I just came to pick up free materials because he had listed them on Craigslist, and he had a class going on of timber framing. I was already obsessed with timber framing, so I was like trying to basically get my tuition-free class. I was always a brain picker, man. I would go to extra college classes when I wanted to learn more. If that's nerdy, you know, it is what it is, but I got free information that way. And the professors loved it. They loved to see me a second and third time in class taking notes. There's a lot of knowledge, man. We have this 100 million years of knowledge that we've been storing. What else do you do with it? You want to try to shine with it. That's the idea. This edge just feels a little high to me here. Best way to do this would be put a 1-inch board right here. That way you're getting your plane flat. But she's working. Yeah, I could see you being a brain picker based on what I learned of you just today, you being in here. The way that you ask questions sounds like you're one of us brain pickers. One of the things this guy said to me that stuck with me, I was with my son and I was building him a bed at the time. Actually, I was building 2 twin beds. I'd built a king size and a full bed and a couple toddler beds before that. So I felt pretty good about my experience in building these things fairly quickly. Nah, this is a Japanese pull plane here, a block. It's a pull stroke plane with a fixed blade. To answer that question. And one of the things he said, my son told him, he was being outgoing. He was like, yeah, my daddy's building me a bed right now. And he's going to be done in a week because he was asking me when I would be done. And the guy tells my son, he said, oh, he said, son, don't worry about it. It's going to take your dad much longer than a week to finish your bed. And it made me think that I should take more time to finish that bed. I did a great job on those, but I think I could have taken more time and shored up things and made it a lot more precise and delicate, The point was that his take it slow mentality about woodwork is good advice because you're trying to make something that's going to last, for you and people want to keep. You're not trying to make something that ends up on the curb. You want something people are passing down as an heirloom, and so that means taking your time. It's going to last lifetimes. You can take some time on it. That's the idea. Handmade bunk beds online, there's something like $3,000. A decent handmade style, and they're not even handmade. They're made mostly with CNC routers. Like the components are cut out and you put them together and they're really nice, beautiful. They're real wood. About $3,000 to $5,000 online. You can get an IKEA or you can go get a Walmart trundle or bunk bed if that's what you want. But a handmade bunk bed is going to cost you at least $3,000 to $5,000. It doesn't even matter. Doesn't matter where you get it from. You name the place, Google it. And I don't like to talk about cost because that's not a big factor to me, but it is a factor though. Oh, that's really good. I might take those. Oh, I got all my braces in. I would take those out and work on those a little bit. They're not perfect either. So here we have the bridle joint and stuff set up. We have the main two bents are set. I'm trying to get an angle where y'all can see. That bridle joint at the top, I'm going to use that. I'm going to attach a ladder on this side. I haven't decided whether I want to bring that down or not. It kind of feels a little funky to be up there. Yeah, there's some knots and stuff in there, but all that aside, here we have the basic frame here. Nothing, as I've always said, nothing's nailed or screwed. There's no fasteners in here. It's all wood joinery, wood meeting wood. Where this will go will be, I think, somewhere in here, right? And this 40-inch diameter really should fit the diameter of the frame here. And it's not exactly straight at the moment. So that's part of this, the reason this board is going to be important, because I can almost squeeze it in place. I could probably clamp it in place. This is going to go inside though. You see it attached to the outside. This would work like a butt or a dado joint, but we're not going to do that. We're going to actually set it into the wood a full length, and then we're going to put pins or dowels through the outside, and they'll go all the way in. Here you can see the pockets, brace pockets that I cut. We have a little bit of deviance here, a little bit of tolerance that got cut, but once these get pins through here, let me get to the right spot of the angle. We're going to cut a hole through here. It's going to go into where it's behind this housing, and then we're going to put another wedge of wood in there. It's going to get pounded in with a hammer. It's going to draw this in. It may not go all the way in, but it's going to draw it almost all the way into this housing and keep that pole straight. But I don't have that in yet either. It's actually dry fit right now. So the braces are all dry fit in there. So you can see there's a little bit of chiseling that needs to be done there. That brace over there, same thing. All of these are dry. This wood has nothing. Only thing I got holding this stuff up is that clamp right there. That's what, and everything else is wood on wood joinery. Yeah. Got a couple of old beams. Those were posts that I cut that didn't work. So imagine doing all of that chiseling and all of that work, and then, you know, you have to go back and redo it. That was not a good day when I realized that. There's going to be boards. These are going to have joints cut into them about this deep. And the board, there's going to be vertical 2x4s or 1x3s set like every 6 inches all the way across the top. And they'll knock right in there and you can pop them right out, right? Same thing with the bottom on these 2x6s. There's going to be boards that go across at 6 inches, boom, all the way down. And that's going to create more rigidity in the bed as well. So you have the framework for holding your boards that hold your mattress up here already, and you got that framework down here already. Most bunk beds have a lot of stuff in this area here, but actually I don't need much there. All I need is 2 diagonal braces, maybe one here and one here. But what I'm going to do is put a stair ladder up there, and then a brace, and we'll go from there. That's how we're going to do this thing in Dad's workshop, reaching its 86th minute. Shout out to Ruiz. Shout out to Brian Alexander, Daniel. I just didn't say your last name because I don't think you need me putting your last name on blast. But Brian, Ruiz, Daniel, who else was up in here today? Y'all were the main drivers of this thing today. Oh, Julian was up in here to start. Shout out to Julian. Alex Nikolovsky said, how fast can you make a baseball stick? Well, I've never attempted to make a baseball stick. But you would need a lathe to do that job. That's a lathe job, and usually they're made out of ash. Louisville Slugger makes their baseball bats out of ash wood, which is what the handle of my mallet is made out of. Right there, that right there. So same wood in a Louisville Slugger. That's in that. It's a little wood education. I appreciate everyone being here tonight. Make sure it's Wednesday. Check my join my Discord. Drop a comment. Um, drop a comment on here. Subscribe, like. Check out my Instagram. My name is all over everything here, so you can find it easily. And well, I usually do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So the next live would be Monday. But if you join my Discord, I may have a special one tomorrow. So join the Discord, and I'll think about doing that just for Daniel, and also Ruiz, and also Brian Alexander, and all of them. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Give somebody a hug. Do something good for someone. Do the next right thing. Take care.